Alright, welcome back. So at this point in the construction of the mini Hexapodinno, we've completed step 7, which was to install the Velcro cable strap. Now this looks like it'll probably be for the battery. So what it looks like we're going to have to do is kind of shove this down such that this is pretty much there like so, because in step 8 we're actually going to be installing the Servo Commander 32. Now, from the images and from what I can see here, this looks like it's going to take some standoffs, and it's actually going to screw into the base. I'm taking an assumption there, maybe not. I haven't actually looked at the hardware that's included with this to see if that's valid or not. But if it's not, it'll probably be just some screws or something along those lines. So let's see here. I think the key here is to understand how this is going to be positioned. Right now, the way I have the mini Hexapodinno is that this is the front, this is the back, from what I know so far. And I have it pretty much with the legs upwards, kind of like in a crab position, so that way that the actual unit is resting on the servos to make it easy for me to work on this and give me somewhat of a level working area. So let's continue. So we've already used the double-sided tape. Now we have these standoffs here, and I'm assuming that we're going to be using some of these. I'm not sure how many of them, but we are going to be using some of them. So step 8 basically just says we're going to be installing some screws and some nuts, nothing else. So it says to use screw C. So I'm not quite sure which one screw C is, but let me go ahead and separate all the screws so I know at least there's a general count here. And in this batch we have a bunch of nuts. So it looks like we have 3, 3, and 4. Make that 4 over here as well. Now, from the picture, for what I know about this kit, let's just take a quick look here. We're going to have this, which is the sonar, plus the actual board mounted to the back, and it does look like the battery pack is going to be underneath. So far my assumptions are right. Let's continue on and see what we have left here. Okay, so screw C. Step 8 says use screw C in a nut. Now I'm going to refer back to the original, to the first few pages of the document. Look for screw C. Screw C has four screws. They are 10 millimeters by 3, and it looks like they are these longer ones here. So we're going to take that assumption. We're only going to need 2 of them for now, according to the document. And step 8 only says to screw in 2 of these screws. One thing it says to pay close attention to is where we're actually going to be screwing them into. Now here's a Servo Commander, and we've already wired it with the wiring harness here for the battery, or for any other power source you might use. It says to pay close attention to where we have certain things on the board, so that way we put the screws in the right position. So let me just scroll back here. So it looks like we're mounting those right back here, because it says pay attention to the I/O pins, which are these in the front. So we're going to go ahead and mount these two screws here. Just basically says to put them through. And we're going to go ahead and put a nut there on each one of these screws. Now when you're working with the board, like I said in all my other videos, and I said earlier in this one, is basically make sure that you're careful, that you're free of static. We're fairly familiar with working with electronics and circuitry, so we've already been grounded and we've freed ourselves of any static, and we continually do so even though we're not using an anti-static mat. let's go ahead here. Now I'm just kind of hand tightening this. I'm not really putting this super tight, because we really don't have to. Now one thing I noticed is that we're probably going to have to take the wiring harness off in the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. That's probably a mistake that I made there. Jumping the gun. Now, just to kind of reiterate, you're going to need a small screwdriver. So, it uses, looks like to me, is a Phillips head screwdriver. I'm just going to quickly check here. And that is correct. Uses a small Phillips head. So we're going to take out these here. Remember, you don't have to loosen them all the way. These cables should slide right out. So I've taken out the wiring harness for now, while I try to mount this. Now, it says we're going to be mounting it just like so somehow. So I'm not going to actually mount it just yet. I'm going to continue to look through the next steps. So the next steps, it actually says use the remaining two screws, screw C. And we're going to go ahead and mount these to the actual frame of the mini Hexapodinno on the front portion. So what I can see immediately is that the I/O pins that they told us to look out for are going to be mounting or aiming towards the front of the mini Hexapodinno, while the power is going to be aiming towards the back. And I went ahead and I skipped ahead, and it looks like basically the wiring harness, which is why I took it off, will be going through that back portion. Let me just kind of zoom out here. Okay. Now, once we've mounted those screws, it says to go ahead, and we're going to mount this sucker right on there. That appeared to mount in there nicely. One thing I'm going to do is kind of pull in this strap here. Can't see what I'm doing, but I'm going to be pulling it in. And there we go. Mounted. However, it says that we're going to be using some standoffs. So I'm going to look at our little bag of goodies here. Move these screws out of the way for the moment. Now in this bag we have some more double-sided tape, a few plastic pieces that we did not pinpoint in the beginning of the show, some long metal standoffs. Make sure you do not lose these standoffs because they're very hard to find online, especially in varying sizes like this. There are some sites that do have them, not all of them do. Now it says to use the plastic ones, however I don't see any plastic ones. So let me make sure by scrolling back to the front of the document that these are the correct ones, because the actual image here shows larger standoffs look more like these medium ones rather than these plastic ones here. I definitely recommend printing this out, this document, just to help you along the way. Okay, so this looks like this is the sonar support. Or sorry, let's see, this is a sonar back plate. So we're actually going to mount the sonar to this plate, and this is the sonar support, the funny hammerhead looking one. And let's see what it says about the standoffs. So we have some plastic ones, and we have this one here. It turns out that the package didn't include plastic standoffs of this size, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to use these metal ones that it came with, because it looks like those are the only ones available, and they might have used it as a replacement. This is a common